Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content. Please tune in. Welcome back to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Mitchell, it's the final Sunday night football brought to you by Uber Eats, and it's the tastiest matchup of them all. The Super Bowl matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. It was a game. I can't say we expected this result. We expected the Philadelphia Eagles to go after the Kansas City Chiefs in the way that they did, to really dominate them on both sides of the football, the way that they did, for Patrick Mahomes to struggle the way that he did. But Mitchell, Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions again. What'd you think of it?
They deserved it, Richard. They dominated from start to finish. This game was never close. And to me, Philadelphia is built the right way. They're built in the trenches. You talked about it all season. Trench play, Mitchell. That's what you told me. The winners are built in the trenches, and you saw it specifically on the defensive side of the ball. This front four is ferocious. They were getting after Patrick Mahomes with no blitzing whatsoever. 0 blitzes in the first half for the Philadelphia Eagles. They did it all with their front four. You know, they had 6 sacks in this game. Patrick Mahomes had only been sacked 6 times in the previous 3 Super Bowls. So, you know, for me, Richard, this Philadelphia Eagles team is built for the present and for the future with this defensive front. I'm curious to know your thoughts, because I don't think a whole lot of people saw this coming. Some folks said, hey, Philly might have the edge here. But to be dominating this much and to make Patrick Mahomes look that uncomfortable throughout the entire game, how does this happen?
Well, let's first off say congratulations to Brandon Graham, who got to play in another Super Bowl, got to play in his last game, walk away Super Bowl champion. Our guy, friend of the program, Big Play Slay, got him a Super Bowl. All the young guys for the Philadelphia Eagles got him a Super Bowl. Lane Johnson got his second Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts got his first Super Bowl with the Super Bowl MVP. That's going to be a whole conversation for another day, because of all these top quarterbacks with no Super Bowls. And now the only one outside of Matt Stafford and Patrick Mahomes to have a Super Bowl right now is your guy, Jalen Hurts, and got Super Bowl MVP of that Super Bowl. But we'll talk about that at another time. The way this happened, and it's something we talked about earlier in the playoffs and at the end of the season with the Kansas City Chiefs, when they moved Joe Thuney to left tackle and they moved Caliendo to left guard. We said, hey, like, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, it seemed to be working in the playoffs. It seemed to be okay. And you moved your all-pro left guard to left tackle, and then your all-pro right guard had what may be his worst Super Bowl game of his career. And that's how it happened. You got to give the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line a lot of credit. Guys like Josh Sweat, who's a homegrown talent in Philadelphia, who kind of, is in and out of the rotation, but really had an excellent game in the Super Bowl, 2.5 sacks. Milton Williams had 2 sacks in the game, and then Jalen Carter continuing to be a menace throughout the game. Zach Bond with the interception. Cooper DeJean, the rookie, pick 6 early in that game. That really was it was an eye-opener, because it just looked like Patrick Mahomes, especially in the first quarter, was a deer in the headlights. This would be different. Obviously people were saying, well, you guys played against him in 2019 and, he was young and he threw a couple interceptions. Like, he's played like this before. No, this is a veteran. This is a guy with 3 Super Bowls under his belt, multiple Super Bowl MVPs. This is a guy that is experienced as a veteran. This is 2024, not 2019. This is 5 years later. These mistakes are catastrophic and they're detrimental. And he ate it. He owned it at the end of the game. He said, hey, this was all on me. But that doesn't change anything, Mitchell. It's going to be very, very, and I can't emphasize enough, very difficult for him to ever recover from this. When you talk about the quote unquote GOAT conversation, we talked about, hey, it's going to be tough for him to overcome Tom beating him twice, but it's dang sure going to be tough when you got the crap beat out of you in the way he did, and he played so terribly, especially in the first half. We talked about his record against Vic Fangio. It was 8-0. Now it's 8-1, but it's a one that mattered. And Vic had an incredible plan for him, an incredible plan for that offensive line, and his team executed. And secondary executed, played a really good game. C.J. Gardner-Johnson played a good game. You got to give Quinyon Mitchell, you didn't hear his name a lot because it's not a lot to say when you're on Guantanamo Bay. He played really well, and we were giving a lot of credit to this Eagles defensive line. But on the flip side, that Eagles offensive line was really great. You know, how many more games, how many more seasons does Lane Johnson play? I don't know. Does he go out on top as a Super Bowl champion? Perhaps. But he played an excellent game. This entire offensive line, again, the trenches, this offensive line owned the line of scrimmage the entire day. Everybody's like, why didn't Saquon have a great game? Because the Kansas City Chiefs and Spags, 18 games, not allowing a 100-yard rusher. 19 games now in the playoffs, not allowing a 100-yard rusher. They were not going to let Saquon Barkley beat them. So you know what happened? Jalen Hurts used his legs, broke the all-time record, broke his own record in the Super Bowl for rushing yards by, I think, a yard, and executed in the passing game, dropped dimes down the field. Excellent. Didn't make a lot of mistakes. Did throw the early interception, but recovered from that. Took what the defense gave him, didn't make a ton of mistakes. When their defense gave him a turnover, he turned it into 7 points. That's the reason why they dominated this game. And that's the reason he got Super Bowl MVP. And if you really think about it, all of us in the media space, have talked about the top quarterbacks in the National Football League right now. And usually that conversation is Patrick Mahomes, and then some combination of Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and then everybody else. You know, whether there's Trevor Lawrence believers or Justin Herbert believers or CJ Stroud is the guy or young Jaden Daniels has pushed himself into that conversation. Rarely do we ever say Jalen Hurts. And I think it's going to have to start being Jalen Hurts in that conversation because as we talked about it, playoffs matter. How you execute under the bright lights has to matter. How you execute on the biggest stage has to matter. Patrick Mahomes honestly took a step back. Is he still at the top? Of course. I mean, it's hard to knock him off that top, Mitchell, because he's still 3 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, like 2 MVPs. Like, let's not get crazy here. But Jalen Hurts is in that conversation now because of how he played down the stretch. And we have been critical of him. I've been critical of him for his play, you know, lack of stats and all the gaudy stats that you want to see from your quarterback if you're going to put him in that top 5 conversation. But when Saquon Barkley was non-existent and getting stopped in his Super Bowl, he showed up and he carried his team. He's carried his offense. He executed, got great passes, even a couple that got called back to A.J. Brown. He is a big reason why they won this Super Bowl. And if you listen to his teammates talk about him, they say he's the biggest reason. And so you have to give him a lot of credit, and you have to talk about him in this top 5 conversation for the rest of it. Because how many of these quarterbacks have a Super Bowl MVP? We can talk about the regular season MVP, but Super Bowl MVP has to matter. And when you're talking about it, he has one, and he has the ring. He has the trophy. And the only other quarterbacks that are playing right now that have had a Super Bowl in the last, decade are Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. That's it. This ain't no little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is Super Bowl 59. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the promo code RICHARD. That's code RICHARD for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
I mean, here's Jalen Hurts. He's overcome a lot of adversity in his career. Let's not forget, this is a guy that Nick Saban benched in favor of Tua Tagovailoa in the NFC title game years back. And, you know, you got to think that he still thinks about that. He probably carries that chip on his shoulder. And throughout this entire season, the conversation was always, hey, you know, we just want Jalen Hurts to play smart. Hand the ball off to Saquon. Let's not turn the ball over. But on a day where Saquon, it was bottled up by the Kansas City Chiefs, and kudos to the Kansas City Chiefs for being able to contain him. Jalen Hurts took that moment and made it his. And then credit to him for getting Saquon involved in other ways. You know, 6 receptions for 40 yards. You know, that's impactful. But it was the strike to Devontae Smith late in that game that was the true backbreaker. And that was to show you that Jalen Hurts is that guy. And then, not to mention, man, the icing on the cake is what he does with his legs. I mean, it's unbelievable. The brotherly shove, tush push, until the league chooses to take that out of the game, I don't see anyone stopping that for the foreseeable future. And this is a guy that can get it done on the ground with 72 rushing yards and a touchdown. I mean, Richard, I want to talk about the future of this team because you look at Vegas has already got the odds on for next year, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs that are favored, followed closely by the Philadelphia Eagles. But when you look at the Chiefs, I mean, this was a team, we talked about it all year throughout the podcast. We didn't know how they won 15 games. I mean, I don't know what kind of magic, what kind of luck, what you want to call it. Blocked field goals, doinks, you know, you botch snaps at end of games. To me, they didn't look like the same dominant Chiefs team that they have had in years past. Do you think that the window of dominance for this Kansas City Chiefs team is closing, or do you still think with Patrick Mahomes there, they should be the favorite going forward?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to not say they're going to be the favorites going forward. You know what I mean? They lost the Super Bowl before to Brady, and they came back and won 2 back to back. And so I don't think you're sitting there saying, "Hey, the window's closed and they're done and they're wrap it up." And you know, Travis Kelce, is he going to retire? Is he not going to retire? I don't think that's the case. I think they need to improve their offensive line. Obviously, they got the All Pros in the middle, but they need tackles. They need good tackles, and that's going to be a weakness that they need to solidify. Obviously, Xavier Worthy had a really good game, but Patrick Mahomes, he got away with a lot of, you know, football one-on-one, you know, things that he's rules that he's been breaking for a long time that he wasn't able to break in this Super Bowl. You know, things that he's been able to get away with in Super Bowls and regular seasons that he wasn't able to get away with in this Super Bowl. And I think that's what was difficult for him. You know, you look in the first half and they're putting pressure on him and he's looking to turn around and spin around and run in circles. And that defensive line was incredibly disciplined. They were incredibly locked in and they didn't allow him to do it. They punished him every single time he made a mistake. Hey, you're going to break a fundamental rule, you're going to pay for it. And every time, hey, throwing across your body as you're scrambling right, you're throwing across your body. Cooper DeJean, pick 6. Hey, you want to look down the field. You want to ignore this defensive line that's clearly penetrating. You want to think, hey, I can run in circles until somebody comes open. Bang, sack, 6-7 yard loss. And I think that's something that he's going to have to look at and think, hey, maybe I'm not going to be able to get away with that anymore. Maybe I'm not going to be able to get away with that as much as I did in the past, and I'm going to have to play more by the book. They're going to draft well. They're going to continue to develop their home talent, but everybody else is catching up. And the Philadelphia Eagles look to be a force. I mean, they're not going to lose a ton. If Lane Johnson retires, yes, that will be a huge loss and a huge issue, but you know, they got a guy at right guard that could potentially move to right tackle and Mekhi Becton. And could that happen? No question. No question. I think that could be the O-line of the future, and they move somebody else to right guard, and they continue to push on. I think they got a young defensive line that's hungry, that continues to play well. I think they hopefully pay my guy Big Play Slay and bring him back. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson comes back. I think that secondary comes back. And again, Vic Fangio comes back. And I think that another year in his system, more continuity. You got to think this is their first year in their system. You know, they talked all the mess about all the issues they had with their coordinators last year. And then they bring in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio and go to a Super Bowl and win it. And now you got Nick Sirianni saying, hey, let's do it again, Kellen. Don't go to New Orleans. Does he go? Does he stay? I think he still goes and takes that, but you never know. You hear the head coach pleading with him to stay and to run it back with this team. And I'm sure those conversations are happening tonight. And human nature is going to kick in. Does he stay and do it with the Philadelphia Eagles? Does Jeffrey Lurie try to lure him back with more money and say, "Hey, I will up your salary to come back to make sure your family's taken care of the way they should be taken care of, so we can make another run at a back-to-back Super Bowl"? Are they the next dynasty? They could be. They're a well-built team, and again, Jalen Hurts has been through a ton of adversity. You talked about him getting sat in the national championship game. He's shown tremendous resilience and really, I mean, a storybook ending, not a storybook ending to his career, but to this season, and just another chapter in the story of his life and his career, of how incredibly resilient and strong minded and strong willed and consistent this young man has been. And Super Bowl MVP. There's only a couple quarterbacks that have gotten it. Even when their team wins it, he's one of them. It's a very, very select fraternity, and congratulations to him, and congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. I look forward to seeing what they are next season and talking about them in the off season. They're the Super Bowl champs. They get the celebration. They get the parade.
They deserve it. And Howie Roseman deserves a lot of credit too here, Richard. I mean, he's got it done through the draft. He's built this team the right way. And he's also taking advantage of opportunities when they present themselves, i.e. AJ Brown, i.e. Saquon Barkley. When superstars are let go by other teams, the Philadelphia Eagles always seem to be in the mix and that conversation to get them. We'll see. I mean, do they make a move on Myles Garrett? Do they make this defensive line even more intimidating? I don't know. But Philadelphia, to me, is a team they're going to grow. They're going to get better. They're young. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, the draft they had this past draft, they're only going to get better. And it scares me as a Detroit Lions fan wanting to be able to roll through that NFC. You got a juggernaut there in the Philadelphia Eagles that you're going to have to mess with at some point. And so we'll see what happens going forward. But back to the topic of conversation with the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, my bit of advice to him is you saw what Ben Johnson did with the Lions. When you're the hot ticket name on the market, like, you can be selective. I don't know if New Orleans Saints are where you want to go with Kellen Moore, with that situation they got with the salary cap space they have being non-existent. We'll see if he comes back. This Philadelphia Eagles team might be intact, and like you said, might be looking to run it back. But that was the final Sunday Night Football, brought to you by Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats has the best game day deals all season long. Order now for game day. Richard, that's it, man. This season is a wrap. The Philadelphia Eagles, hats off to them. Hats off to our boy Darius Big Play Slay. Richard, it's been a grind, man, but I've loved doing this with you every week. We love all you guys, all of our fans, followers, listeners, however you guys do it. We love it. Richard, I'll let you sign us off, my friend.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us all season long for our what we would think is incredible NFL coverage. I appreciate you guys joining us. Appreciate you guys supporting. It's been an awesome season. Hope you guys have a beautiful, blessed day and continue to thrive. Continue to be yourselves. Continue to enjoy yourselves. We got another 6 months before next year's season, so keep yourselves occupied. Maybe watch a little basketball, a little baseball, a little soccer. But we appreciate you. We know you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we sure do always appreciate you. Love and respect. We'll be here giving you some off-season coverage, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft, rookies. We'll do all that. But thank you so much for joining us throughout this season. It's been a pleasure covering your teams, your favorite teams, being your favorite commentator or the commentator you hate the most. Either way, love and respect.